I truly did not understand anything about dementia when I saw a sneak peek of your documentary. From that moment, from that time, I have encountered more and more clients with dementia.
Before we move on, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you know when new episodes are available. Like our content, share your comments. We want to hear from you.
That I am the host of the Sacred Moments podcast. I'm also the owner of Sacred Moments End of Life and Legacy Planning. I'm a death doula, celebrant, end of life and love legacy guide and educator. My work really centers on helping people to live fully by planning intentionally so that their values, their wishes, all of those are honored, even if they lose the ability to communicate. So that's the heart I bring to this conversation. Today, I'm honored to be with Nathaniel Brown, a 30-year veteran storyteller, writer, filmmaker, publisher, mentor, creative coach. And he uses his power of story to educate and transform and awaken communities. He's a Baltimore, Maryland native, now living in Atlanta, Georgia. And he's built a career of helping people find their voice and tell their stories, the stories inside of them that are waiting to be told. The way I met you is through your powerful advocacy work around dementia. You're the founder of Expose Dementia and the creator of the remarkable documentary I got a sneak peek of called Remember Me, Dementia in the African American Community. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Your conversations
Okay.
about brain health, caregiving, stigma, legacy in particular, they have sparked conversations
I
internationally.
really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you, to share more, to engage the community, and have people really think about brain health more authentically and intentionally, to be honest, because it's where we are now, knowing that this situation with dementia and declining cognitive ability is increasing in our community in particular, but across the world. We just need to do our part to make a difference. And so that's where my focus has been the past few years, and just looking forward to expanding that.
Can you please tell us what's going on with Exposed Dementia, Expected in Entertainment? Are there events coming up, ways for people to connect with you, to get published, mentored, take courses, anything?
Sure. Well, we always have something going on. So the best thing to do is to always stay close through the website, get on our email list, because things are happening in real time. We are very excited about the second annual Exposed Dementia Conference, which is taking place in Baltimore, March 19th through the 21st. This is where we bring together creatives, music therapists, dance therapists, art therapists, Lego therapists. We have a comedy show, an art exhibit. We have so many elements that we bring together in the same mindset to be able to advocate for people living with dementia and their care partners, to create opportunities to share resources for networking, and then also for that very key component of respite. Which is why we include those items in there for the comedy show, where people can just come and release and just laugh and have a good time. And then we go into, some of the topics that are very important. That's going to be at the Maritime Conference Center in Lincoln, Maryland, which is right outside of BWI Airport. We have some amazing people that are joining us, including Teepa Snow, who is our keynote speaker on Saturday. So we have a track for professionals and a track for caregivers as well. And so you can get more information from our website at exposedementia.com or .org, but .com as well. You'll be able to get more information about the conference and some of the other things that we're doing, including some of the screenings for Remember Me. We also are working on an amazing production called God Guides the Stage Play, which deals with mental health in Black men. And we have our next play coming up in May in Atlanta. We also did this play in St. Martin last year, and we have a female version of it as well called God Sis. So we're working on that for 2026 as well. There's a lot of things that are going on, and we just want people to get involved, stay connected, and really understand that there is a lot going on, but there's a lot happening from those who care about people. And so that's our main thing is really having impact through our art.
Again, I enjoyed the cultivating meaningful moments. I was blown away, especially because that conference was at no cost. That was
Yes.
mind-blowing. You gave so much during that conference, and it was very well done. I got to meet some amazing people, got to network a bit. I got to meet you.
Yes.
And that
Yeah,
panel
Donna.
presentation was really amazing.
Yes, Donna Gales, who hosted that event, is amazing. She will be at the conference as well, participating. And so it was through connections like that where we're able to collaborate, bring people together, provide information, resources, all of those things. And what we want to be able to do is to extend that. So there are people right now that I have never met, that I don't know who they are, but through these types of connections, we'll get a chance to meet and then figure out that there are commonalities that we have as opposed to us focusing so much on differences. And then we can come together to have an impact. So that was a great example of it. And as you mentioned with that panel, some amazing people in that panel that I'd met for the first time that day. And now, hopefully we'll be building into the future again. We want people to come to the conference as they did, and then you'll meet a new tribe. You'll meet some
Yes.
people that you're gonna work with. It might not be me personally. You might say, you know what, I don't vibe with you, but I met the Lego lady, Loretta Vaney, and say, she might become someone that you're very connected to. Or you might hear one of the presenters that, maybe talking about music therapy and how it impacts us. And you say, you know what? Now I found a new direction. So it's not just about one person or one thing. It's about finding the people that can help you and move you forward, and then that would support the visions that you have. And what we want to be able to do is to help those voices become amplified. So if you have a story, or if you're trying to figure out, do I do a podcast? Do I write a book? Do I write a stage play? Do I start acting? Whatever it is, we want to be able to spark something in you so that you can take that seed and you can plant it within yourself and then allow it to grow, allow it, water it. And then you're going to have the impact for your world. Part of my personal mission statement is that I want to help people dream bigger, live their dreams, and impact their world. And so impacting your world is not necessarily about the global world. That world could be your community. It could be within your household. It could be your city. It's just wherever you have that influence, wherever you can reach people, that's your world. So figure out a way how you can impact that world. And for me, it's been through my storytelling. It's in my life experiences. I do have 21 books. I probably
20.
have about 40 or so films that I've done. I write poetry. So it's a lot of different storytelling opportunities that I've used to be able to impact others. And I want to inspire and encourage other people to do the same.
Well, your documentary it started personal. It's your family. That's how
Yes.
you kind of started the conversation, and it led you to dream bigger, to live the dream, and to impact the world, quite literally, in your case, impact the
Yes.
world. You've been doing storytelling, is it 30 plus years
At
or
least.
at least?
Yeah, I started writing when I was around 4 or 5. So I'm a little bit older than 30 plus that 4 or 5, but that's when I started because I used to watch my mother write. And I said, I want to do what you're doing. So she was writing poetry, writing letters, writing stories. And I said, I want to do the same thing. And so through the years, that became my voice. My voice became my writing. And so I would share things through that writing. And then eventually I learned and understood that through my writing, I can touch lives, I can have impact. And so that translated into, me working for newspapers and magazines, writing books, coaching other people to write books and help them publish, to writing movies, to doing so many things around that. And so that just became my niche, my personal niche. And so it didn't change once I got into the dementia space as well. So I said I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to use what I have and what I do as opposed to trying to do something else or trying to mimic somebody else's career. So I said, how can I utilize my love and interest for the arts and storytelling and the media and still be able to do that? And so I said, if I create this documentary, I'm educating the community about dementia. I'm still being able to do art. And then I included a book called Exposing Dementia, which is kind of a companion to the documentary and gives a lot of that same information from what is dementia, what is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's, what are some of the risk factors, how come Black people are twice as likely to be diagnosed with it, but I think they said 35 to 40% less likely to receive the care that they need. So those are the things that I've learned on this journey that I said, I'll put this in any format that I can around art and media. So podcasts, books, movies, TV, plays, you name it. That's what we're trying to do.
So tell the story of how you started on this dementia documentary
So my
journey.
family has been hit very hard by dementia. And usually I just say dementia because we don't know in a lot of cases what type it was. And so for those who don't know, dementia is not the disease. Dementia is a overall umbrella term that describes symptoms of cognitive impairment, memory, thinking, things like that. But that's caused by something. So Alzheimer's is a cause of dementia. Parkinson's is a cause of dementia. So I say dementia as a general term because we never knew. I
Mhm.
don't think most of the people that I saw it in my family were ever diagnosed, but we knew something was wrong. Now I can look back and say that was dementia. About 3 years ago, I saw my aunt for the first time since she started losing her memory. And that's what broke me. I was associating dementia with dying or very old or, whatever it was. And that wasn't the case with my aunt. And my aunt is the one who helped raise me. She taught me a lot of things. And so I couldn't understand what I was witnessing. So at that point, when I deal with my emotions, I go to my creative space. So I did a short film called That's My Brother, which is about 7 minutes long because my aunt was calling her daughter her sister. So I said,
Mm.
if I share a piece of her story in this creative way, it's going to help me deal with my emotions, and then I can move on to something else. I've dealt with it. Well, it didn't happen that way. People started asking me questions that I couldn't answer because I didn't know anything about dementia. And so that started my quest to learn more. I started researching. I started, reaching out to different people to find out more information about it so that I could understand for myself, that I could help my family, that I could share it with the people, within my sphere of influence. And so that led to ultimately the documentary. Once I got it together, I said, you know what? I have to share this with more people because
Mhm.
it's needed. And I didn't realize how badly it was impacting the African American community. And so I said, I'm going to share it in these different communities. And then it continued to expand to be able to help other people.
What's the biggest misconception other than not knowing that dementia is an umbrella term? What is like you said, also people think it's a disease for people who are older. Are there
Mhm.
other like misconceptions? And can you also share like what signs did you see or notice in your aunt or any other loved one that people should be thinking about in themselves? And all of us might forget, walk in the bedroom or if forget why you went to the bedroom,
Mhm.
or get you a glass of water, put it on the counter, walk to the back and say, where's my glass of water? I've done that. And so are
Yeah.
those concerning, or just tell me some of the signs or what people should be thinking about or concerned about?
Yeah, we all do that. So I don't think people should be concerned, if it happens here or there. I think the biggest thing that people should understand is that when it starts to affect your everyday life. That's when it's something to be concerned with. So if you just, walk in a room and you forget what you came in there for, you go back out and then you're like, oh, I now remember I was going to get, some socks, whatever, that is. Like, that's okay. We all do that. We have what is called brain fog,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be caused from lack of sleep, not eating, just
Menopause.
menopause,
Yes.
fatigue, like just so many things can contribute to that. So you just want to be paying attention to those things that are happening. If it becomes something that happens regularly, that's when you want to have that conversation. Or if you notice a family member who is consistently getting lost, going to a place that they're, you know, accustomed to going to every day for the past 20 years, and now they can't find their way to the corner store, to the Walmart, or something like that. That's when you want to start getting concerned. Or if the things that are happening are outside of those simple things that we're talking about, and it becomes, why did I just pour this whole container of milk in the spaghetti?
Mm.
Like, that's not an average mistake. Like, okay,
Yeah.
something is going on. So you want to just pay attention to things like that as well. And then when you mentioned the misconception,
Yes.
there's a lot of stigma still around dementia, especially in the African American community. And so what we want to be able to do is to have conversations so that people can know it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to seek help. You're not crazy. You're just going through something health-wise that needs to be addressed. And so the more we can do that, it'll help people who are in different stages of dealing with dementia or any of those causes of dementia. The earlier you are diagnosed, the more you can be treated, and it slows the progress. And so the conversations that we're having now are making it easier for people to say, yes, I am noticing this in my mother or in my grandfather or, whomever. If we do that, now it's going to be easier for someone to say, let me reach out to Donna. I think she knows, what I can do or where I can go, as opposed to me being afraid to reach out and saying, I don't want her to look at me differently. I don't want her to look at my family differently. Let's just have the conversation. Let's get beyond that part so that we can get to some solutions.
Some of the clients I am working with, um, there are a few things that just blow my mind. So people with dementia, form of dementia, um, might not remember something, but they can read and even comprehend something they read. They can identify colors. I am amazed by the brain. I'm also very baffled by the brain.
Yeah.
But what has shocked me is I can play cards. You can still have joy with a person who has dementia. You can still create somewhat of a fulfilling life. And
Yes.
I think in many cases, because people don't know what to do or how to manage it or how to approach it, or they think, oh, my loved one, this is going to take my loved one out. Any solutions on creating a situation that isn't as horrible as it might seem?
Well, one of the reasons that we started Expose Dementia was because we were finding so many of these stories when we took the documentary out. And once we have these panel discussions and we're hearing from people who are speaking on these topics for the first time in a lot of cases, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And we wanted to be able to say, wow, did you hear that? Like, we need to do something to address caregiver burnout. We need to do something to create respite opportunities for the caregivers, but also respite opportunities for the people living with dementia. We want to be able to make sure they have contacts to resources to be able to understand what they're experiencing, understand for themselves what they're experiencing, but then also the people that they're caring for. And then where there are opportunities for resources to connect some of the missing pieces to say, okay, hey, maybe you need someone to talk about end of life preparations, or maybe you need someone to talk about creative arts therapy as a way to manage agitation, or whatever those areas are. But a lot of times we don't know and we get overwhelmed. And so our goal was to be able to close some of the gaps. Now, of course, we're not going to be able to reach everybody. You're not going to be
Mhm.
able to solve every problem. But if we just do our part and we help other people do their part, now we're making a bigger impact. And so I think a lot of times it's the information. So if you learn that, music connects people to people differently and allow them to retain certain information, you're gonna do that more often. But if you don't know it, you're still in that same cycle and you're not trying some of these things. And because dementia is such a unique individual situation, everybody is different. So music might work for one person,
Right.
art might work for somebody else, dance movement might work for somebody else. So you just want to be able to understand what is offered to try some things and then go from there. Caregivers needing support groups, therapy, just a break,
Yeah.
taking care of their own health, those types of things. We just want to be able to, as a community, figure out what the needs are and then determine how do we meet those needs.
And I guess the key mostly is for people to learn to become vulnerable, to ask for help, to share what they're going through without, feeling like they're going to be judged or embarrassed. And that is a big deal in our community. We are a
Right.
very private people. You said something earlier that 35 to 40% of people in the African American community are less likely to get the help they need. And I just want to stay there for a minute because we have a history of trauma and
Right.
distrust. And so that has a great impact. What can people do to make this risk, this number decrease? What can they do to help themselves?
Yeah. So for me personally, I think it goes back to, you said, the vulnerability, which is why I share my story. A lot of times it's not the happy story.
Yeah.
It's the struggles and the challenges. But I think that connects with people who have gone through something themselves or are going through something, and they feel a little bit better about sharing because other people do. And so when you put them in an environment where that's the norm and not the exception, that wow, there's a group of people here that's openly talking about their experiences with themselves, with their families, because we do have people living with dementia that's also a part in sharing their stories. And so when you hear these things, it makes it easier to have that conversation. And then if you're starting to have that conversation, then you can say, okay, I better go talk to somebody, or I better find out more information. Or you'll say, okay, so there is a support group that I can go to. So you're learning something for the first time. Oh, there is actually medication that can slow the progression of this disease. A lot of times we don't even know. In a lot of situations, especially with minority communities, um, the access to that information and resources, it's not always there. It's
Hmm.
not easily accessible, or there are other barriers to it, whether it's transportation, whether it's understanding the process, whether it's the lack of health care, whatever those challenges are, those numbers are always inflated. So anytime I hear a statistic that deals with the African American community, I always know the number is higher. So
Hmm.
if they say we're twice as likely to be diagnosed with dementia, I know that number is even higher because you're probably talking to people that you have access to. Most of the people I know haven't talked to you and won't talk to you. So I know
Mm.
that number is going to be higher. But the fact that we can still use those numbers to say it's affecting us more than anybody else, what are
Yeah.
we going to do about it? Regardless of how much more those numbers are. And so we just have to be intentional about addressing those things.
Are there happy stories that you've heard about how people are living and supporting their loved ones, being a supportive family, and living with dementia? Are there happy stories? The stories I see and the people I'm around, they make me sad. Have you been exposed to any happy or successful stories?
Absolutely. Across the board. So I've heard the stories where there's the caregiver that found his or her purpose from caring for their loved one. Now they have a reason that they've been searching for. Like this is their why for living. And that has continued long after their loved one has transitioned. They're still in the field, still working, still helping people because they found their calling. There are stories from people who discovered the creative arts and how it impacted them. So where someone had, lost their memory and had experienced music therapy, for example, and then that connected them back to certain memories, and they had that moment to share with their loved ones, or the people that find new connection with their family members because they
Hmm.
understand, this is different. I have to learn different. I have to communicate differently. And then you make those relationships even better. And for me, I have the mindset now that this has changed my life so much that I appreciate today
Yeah.
because I don't know what tomorrow holds. And then you begin to appreciate people, you begin to appreciate time. My next book, by the way, is called Dementia Saved Today. And that's the thinking behind it is that this experience for me with my family and for others that I've met along the way, it has changed the way I look at today. So that if I am no longer here tomorrow, I'm hoping that I had enough impact on you, on your listeners, that it's lasting and that maybe they will touch the lives of somebody else. And so that's kind of how I looked at it because for me, it completely changed my life, brought me in a direction that I had never expected to be in. Have met people that I never expected to meet, doing work that I never expected to do. And so it gave me a new perspective on life and a new perspective on people. And so I spend my time more in those places doing the things that I know I'm supposed to do, that I enjoy, that I love. And I'm hoping that other people will do the same because you don't want to regret not doing them.
Yes, yes. The
So,
importance again of and the power in storytelling and end of life planning, because with end of life planning, there's a lot more regret when we are not sharing those stories while our loved one is able to remember the stories. And it's not, you don't, if you're incapacitated for any reason, it doesn't have to be dementia. It's important to have those conversations, to become
yes.
vulnerable enough to talk about end of life, to be real enough to know that that is an absolute path and destination for all of us. It's an absolute truth. That's the one thing we know for sure. Have you ever experienced a family or had heard a story of a family who, because the individual did not share their end of life wishes, how that may have impacted them negatively or had them very unsure about what they needed to do to care for their loved one and to provide for them at the end of their life?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm guilty. I'm one of the people that didn't want to have those conversations. My wife tried to get me to have the conversations. My mother tried to get me to have the conversation. I'm like, I don't want to talk about death. I don't want to talk about dying. I got too much life ahead of me. I'm doing all these things. And so I put it off until, maybe the past few years, getting into this space. But I was one of those people. And I know a lot of people who are like that. But even still, we've seen situations where people didn't have their last wishes, families bickering and fighting, who's getting what, who's doing this, things like that that tears people apart, families apart,
Yeah.
because you don't have it. And then, or if there's a situation that involves, having to go to probate court and going through, unnecessary things because we didn't have those conversations and put things in place. So I'm in the process of doing all of those things now and making sure that I'm sharing with other people so that they can do the same thing. Because a lot of times we just take time for granted and think, okay, we'll be able to do this later or it'll be okay. And so we already know. And so the more we share those stories as well, the better it is for people to be prepared to make decisions. Because I would have never thought about, certain things like probate court. Like, what does that mean? And, having a
Yeah.
will and all, like, I just didn't have that in my mind. I'm like, I have a good 50 years to live. I can do this 30 years from now. But now I understand, okay, dementia could happen at any time, accidents could happen at any time. You know, you need to be prepared and start having these conversations.
Dementia isn't just about losing memory. It affects behavior. It affects a whole lot more than a person losing their
That
memory.
is correct. Yes. Yeah, yeah, I'm no doctor. I'm not a
Yes.
neuropsychologist or surgeon or anything like that. So I don't want to, make this the medical definitions or things like that. But it does affect different parts of your brain. So with having so many, there are more than 100 types of dementia or causes of dementia. And a lot of them are based on where in the brain it's affected. And so
Hmm.
some might be an area that contributes to behavioral changes. Some might be in areas that are more geared toward memory or language or thinking and those types of things. So it really is based off of where in the brain it's impacted and what's in that part of the brain, whether it's a thinking, memory, behavior, um, creative things. So you have some people whose brains are affected and changed that actually stimulates creativity. So they start painting or drawing,
Okay.
and family members never knew that it happened before, but it's because of the changes in that part of the brain. Or they might be word finding. And so that's based off of where in the brain. Now, I can't at this moment tell you exactly where all of the places are, but I know that the frontal temporal area, for like frontal temporal dementia with Wendy Williams
Okay.
recently, was Bruce Willis. So a
Mm.
lot of that is in the front part of their brain, which changes the ability to think and communicate. So they have aphasia with that as well. So being able to speak and speak clearly and know what they're trying to say. So some might be in agitation, so some people do have Alzheimer's with agitation or some other cause with agitation because of where their brain is misfolding or the proteins and chemicals are changing in their brain. So yeah, so that determines it, which is very important for us being able to treat it. So
Yeah.
if you don't do anything, you don't know what treatment to apply or to pursue. And in some cases, people are misdiagnosed. And so they are treated for something that's not the problem.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, it will either increase the problem or bring about a new problem because now you're trying to treat something that isn't wrong and you're missing what's actually wrong, but you're now causing problems in places that is in addition to the original problem. When you get diagnosed, they'll say you have mild cognitive impairment. That's which is the first signs of, things happening. And then if you're actually diagnosed or someone say, or the doctor tells you that you have dementia, your very first question after that should be, well, I need to know what type, because then they can treat that specific thing as opposed to just saying, oh, you have dementia and sending you on your way, left to kind of fend for yourself. And so you need as much information as you can for yourself, for your family, and then to be able to get the proper treatment.
I remember from the conference, Cultivating Meaning, one of the doctors stated like a urinary tract infection was an example she used of a
Hmm.
person potentially being misdiagnosed because of urinary tract infection. There are personality or changes in your behavior that can mimic
Yes.
dementia.
A
And
lot
so,
of times it's depression as well.
mm,
Because that changes, your mood, your attitude, your thinking, your behavior, like it changes a lot. And so sometimes people have been diagnosed with dementia when actually they were just depressed and needed
mm,
to be treated for depression. Others have had medications that cause dementia-like symptoms.
mm,
And once the medication was regulated, they no longer had those symptoms. So there are a lot of things that can mimic it. And like you said, with the UTIs, that's another one that can change all of those things with thinking, language, behavior, so many other things as well. And so there are quite a few. And what neuropsychologists and psychiatrists do in a lot of cases, they rule out a lot of those areas so that they can pinpoint what it actually is. So they'll get the history and they'll find out, how you're feeling and how you're thinking and what you're doing and your medication and all of those things. And then they can begin to rule out some things to have a smaller pool of potential reasons that the changes are happening.
and that's the importance of people knowing, not just knowing how to advocate for yourself. You don't have to know how to do it, just do it. And that's just asking
Hmm.
questions, being consistent, doing your research, being persistent, and not giving up because it will require, in some cases, for doctors to do some tests to rule things out. And that doesn't always happen. And so people
Right.
need to really be intentional about advocating for their own health and the health of their loved ones.
And what you said earlier applies. And if your doctor doesn't listen to you, get another doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
because they went to school longer, she said this too. It doesn't mean that they're the experts on what's going on with your body or your health or what you believe is going on. We are the experts, and
Right.
we may not know the big fancy words, but we know when something isn't right. We have intuition. We know when something doesn't feel right,
Hmm.
and we know when we're getting information from a person who doesn't really care or isn't really doing as much as they can to help
Yes.
resolve the problem. Yeah. We're very intelligent beings. Not a doctor, but do you have any advice on what research says about lifestyle and brain health, and what can we do to reduce the risk of dementia? What's advice for us?
Yeah, so a lot of the what they call the modifiable risk factors, um, a lot of that is around our lifestyle. So certain things we do have the ability to change. The US Pointer study says that up to 45% of dementia cases can be prevented or possibly can be prevented by changing your lifestyle habits. And those include sleep. I mentioned that earlier, getting quality sleep. They recommend 7 to 9 hours of sleep. I'm praying, I'm trying hard to get there. I'm not there yet, but it's one of the areas that I'm intentionally working on. Um, Changing our diet, that's a whole other story for me too. But eating healthier, eating your fruits and vegetables and all the things that we heard about over the years and, removing processed food, those types of things. Exercise, of course.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones that they say is the most important, being able to get your body moving, allowing your circulation to take place, all of those types of things. And then social engagement is really important. A
Mm,
lot of times when people get isolated, especially when they're starting to have some of those symptoms, it progresses quickly. You want to be engaged socially. You want to be able to have conversations with people. It helps stimulate you as well. And then, of course, brain activity. So you want to have brain exercises. You want to, learn a new language. I can't do that, but I'll try something new. I shared recently on a panel after I heard in a webinar, they said, do something different. Like it doesn't have to be big. If you are predominantly right-handed and you brush your teeth with your right hand, start brushing it
Hmm.
with your left hand. You're now training your brain and exercising your brain to do something a little bit differently. Or do crossword puzzles, word searches, things like that to constantly exercise your brain. And if you read. All of those things are helpful in terms of getting that brain exercise and activity to help you as well. So those are some of the things that they suggest that we pay attention to. And then we know in areas where we're lacking. Um,
Yeah.
I love pizza. I can eat pizza 3 times a day, 7 days a week, but I understand that I can't if I'm protecting this body in my brain, and so I have to space it out a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna eat my pizza because that makes me happy, but
Yes.
I'm gonna do it in a way that's a little bit more responsible because I understand what it does to my brain, my body, as well. So those are the types of things that I'm learning. And so when I talk to people, or if I'm sharing my stories and I'm being vulnerable, I'll tell them, like, okay, here are some of the things you're doing. I'm not telling you to do something I'm not. I'm telling you
Yeah.
I'm working on my sleep. I'm telling you I'm working on my diet. I'm trying to do exercise, more often and regularly. I'm trying to, exercise my brain, and I'm trying to reduce stress. That's another big area that a lot of people dismiss when it comes to brain
Yeah.
health. So I started painting. I now write more just to be able to get away and relax. And for me, writing does that. So just find new ways to, relieve that stress, go for walks, listen to music, whatever it is that relaxes you and remove that stress.
I will go to a place and not use my GPS. I will read the signs and try to figure it out because we're so reliant on technology that we
Yeah.
don't think anymore. And GPS can lead you astray. It has for
Right,
me.
right.
And and if I can't find my way, then I can rely on the GPS to get me back on course. But reading signs, doing little things, that's just helpful, period, because we
Right.
are thinking less and using our brain less because we're relying more on technology and things to aid us in accomplishing goals. It's supposed to make life easier, is really taking away our ability to think
Yeah, I
and
agree.
use our brain. Yeah. Are we going to see in Maryland the entire documentary? What's going on with that?
Well, we're actually working on a screening that Sunday. It's not final yet, but it won't be screened at the conference. So we will have four or F- five other films that we're showing as part of the film festival. So again, some are documentary style. The movie about Robin Williams experience. We're going to show Seth and Lauren Rogen's film about caregiving. And then we have three other films that we're showing. But with the documentary, we're still taking it around the country. We've been screening at universities and speaking to students, community centers, and churches. And eventually, we'll have the 5-part series because it's going to be a 5-part series project. But I haven't had as much time to sit and do it because I've been traveling so much, showing the documentary and having these conversations. But we're super excited that people are still receiving it. They're sharing it with family members and friends and say, hey, when it's come to your city, you got to see it. And
Hmm.
so it's been an amazing experience because it has allowed people to have those conversations, to see themselves and say, yeah, I've done this, or see a relative and say, oh, so maybe this is what my relative is going through.
Hmm.
And then it makes it easier to have the conversation because they're not pointing a finger at their family member. They're actually telling a story that they've heard or seen.
Do you think it's also ultimately about preserving meaning?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a combination of those things for me because initially it was just to share the information that I was getting. And once I started, really diving into it, it became so much more. So
Mhm.
it's educating about the history of the mistrust and distrust that you were talking about, the role of the Black church, the caregiver experience, and depression, and all of those things. And then it's also preserving the stories of the people who are involved while encouraging other people to tell their stories too. And so it's all of those things mixed in with the education of what do I do to protect myself, to protect my loved ones, and then to connect people with the resources that they need.
Yeah, I learned about so many resources at last year's conference. It was kind of overwhelming because it was a lot, but it was all of it was very useful. I didn't know where to start.
Hmm.
It's like, wow. And that
Yeah.
was really my response. Wow, there's a whole world out here that I have not known about. And, that's definitely a message for any caregiver and any doula out there. There is a whole world of resources and people who are excited about sharing their resources and helping. And then I saw that excitement as well. It was really a beautiful sight to see. One last question before we close. Um, and hopefully you've thought about this, but if we fast forward like 10 years, maybe 5, 10 years, what changes do you hope your work will help to create? You've talked about helping other people to share their stories, but what real transformative or other transformative work would you like to see um, in the future regarding research, family communities, any of that? How we talk about dementia, any of that.
Yeah. All of that. Not any of that, all of that. We're
For
we're
sure.
dreaming big. Like I said, we're dreaming bigger. That's our, my personal part of my personal mission, but I infuse that into the other things that I'm doing with the other people that I work with. And so that includes making sure people have access to tell their stories, but also increasing the amount of African Americans who are involved in clinical research. Because again, our numbers are so low in terms of participation that when these medications are produced, if we're not a part of the research, we will never know if it works for us. And so we're
Yeah.
always going to be behind the eight ball. So if we can get more people involved in research, but then we're also doing our own research studies and having impact on our communities as well, with focus groups, community boards, to find out what are the needs here and how can we help. And so we're doing a lot of preparations for that. And of course, we want to make sure that people are actually having these conversations and then going to find out early if something is wrong. So early detection is very important. So if we're having a conversations, we want to be able to have people get their memory tested, talk to their doctors, and that will eventually lead to healthier, longer lives, as they say, living well longer.
Yeah.
So that's a big part for us. Some of the things that we do, and I've always said this about the work that I do, I might never see the impact, but I know the impact is going to be there
Yeah.
because we're doing our part. And so a lot of times when I talk about me helping people to tell their stories or publish their books, I don't really have a number on it because I've done so many webinars and workshops and things like that and never see the people again or hear from the people again. But I know that some of them have taken that information and have done something with it. And so it's the same thing with the work that we're doing now. It might be a connection to you where you show this or you talk to somebody that I would have never had the opportunity to meet. And then that leads to them going to get tested or seeing,
Mhm.
another film or a documentary or writing their story. And so we just want to be able to just have as much impact as we can with the people that we have contact with, and then eventually see those numbers come down because we're working with so many organizations and other people collectively and collaboratively to make that impact. So research, early detection, sharing stories, maintaining stories, and just identifying those areas of change and showing people how to do it. So sometimes somebody can say, you need to eat healthier,
Yeah.
but they don't know what that means. So what if we connect them with a nutritionist who shows them what that looks like? So just some tangible things as well.
So earlier you said something and I wrote it down, but US pointer.
Yes. It's a study of, I'm not sure of the website, but if you or if you Google US pointer study, it'll bring up the website and you can read more information. But they put out a report every couple years or so. And in that report, it kind of gives the state of dementia
Okay.
and Alzheimer's predominantly because that's the one that is most prevalent. But there are a lot of them that are included in that study, and in those studies talk about certain things like lifestyle, behavior, um, you know,
Okay.
different things that we need to know and where it's trending, and so that we can pay more attention to certain things. And so that's where you'll find about um, research studies, new findings, and for some studies, they last over 20, 30 years
Okay.
and then results are published. And so when you get that information, now we can see things a little bit differently.
So other than the conference in March and US Pointer, what are ways people can, and Google and ChatGPT, those things,
Hmm.
what recommendations might you have for people to get more information or learn more about dementia in a very easy, digestible way?
Yeah, I think every community has some resources.
Okay.
We just don't know that they're there. So you can always start with your local health department. Um, the Alzheimer's Association has a 1-800 hotline that's 24 hours a day that you can call and get information. Any of the specific organizations. So if you have Lewy body dementia, there's an organization just for that um, type of dementia as well. So you can get specific information. Then there's vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, Parkinson's dementia. So you can find information about all of those individual organizations as well. But I would say, you can start with your community, like what's close to you, and the health department is usually available. The Department of Aging, there are a lot of local Department of Aging, departments of aging that
Mhm.
are there to help. Your senior centers will likely have a lot of information. And that's for the older crowd, of course, but we know that more younger people are starting to be diagnosed. And so you just want to be able to like reach out to those individual organizations and find out what they have and what they have access to. And if they don't, then see if they can recommend, you to another person. But you mentioned those other areas with Google, Chat GPT, other things like that. I wouldn't dismiss any of them.
Okay.
Um, you want to get as much information as you can, but don't let that be your only source of information. So get that information and then ask your doctor, ask someone. And if you're, like we said a million times, if your doctor isn't receptive, get a new doctor
Yeah.
and then ask them, say, hey, I put this in Chat GPT. It said all of this. What does it mean to me? Like, and then go from there. But one of the things that happened with me when I first started, dealing with my aunt situation, I felt like there was nothing out there. I felt like there was nobody out there. And then I found that there's a huge community. There's a lot of people who are helping other people. And so at that point, I was like, well, I don't need to be here. I can just, I can go back to what I was doing. God pulled me back and say, no, I have you here for a reason. And so I'm still here because of that. But I was really floored by the amount of great people who are doing amazing things in this area, in brain health in particular, but
Mhm.
also specific to dementia. And so find those resources. Contact the local universities because they have classes and professors, and the hospitals have specific areas as well. You have to be a little resourceful sometimes, and then you have to be that intentional to advocate for yourself to get the information, because what you don't want to do is nothing.
Yeah.
You want to really try to do it. And I'm telling you that there are people out there who, number one, can help, and number two, can relate to what you're going through, because you're not alone.
Thank you so much for this time today. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I look forward to the conference in
I
March.
appreciate you having me, giving me the opportunity to share this passion, this journey that I'm on. And like I said, I hope that it inspires and motivates people, because we need everybody's involvement. And it doesn't have to be as heavy as it is, because there are people who genuinely care and have love for this space that we're in and helping other people. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much, Donna.